What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 2. Sleepers and studs.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to give you a sleeper pick and my favorite stud at each position.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay, guys, let's take a look at the quarterback position. My quarterback stud for NFL Week 2 is Matthew Stafford from the LA Rams playing the Atlanta Falcons, who have the second worst defense overall. They give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Now, Matthew Stafford only scored 11 fantasy points in Week 1, only had 1 rush attempt, but he is going to be about 12% owned, projected at 23.7 fantasy points here in Week 2. He's $6,300 DraftKings salary, $1,300 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47 points scored in this game, with the Rams favored by 10. So, not a great Week 1, but he's got a fantastic matchup here in Week 2. Still has Cooper Kupp on the field, plenty of weapons to throw the ball to. I think he can score 25 plus fantasy points. So I like Matthew Stafford here versus the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, my sleeper pick at the quarterback position is Marcus Mariota from the Atlanta Falcons playing the LA Rams, who have the 4th worst defense overall. They give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota scored 21 fantasy points in Week 1, and I like this pick because he had 12 rush attempts. So he's only going to be about 4% owned. Now he's projected at 15.7 fantasy points here in Week 2. But with this matchup, I think he can put up another 20 plus fantasy points, especially if he gets 8 to 10 to 12 rushes. He got 12 rushes last week, so if that continues here into Week 2, you're going to get yourself a running back and a quarterback in one player, and he's only $5,600 DraftKings salary. He's $1,700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47 points scored in this game, and the Atlanta Falcons are expected to be trailing by 10. So could be an opportunity for him to get a ton of passes under his belt, playing from behind, as well as a bunch of rush attempts. So I think he can score 20 plus fantasy points here versus the Rams. So I like Marcus Mariota here versus the LA Rams. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. My running back stud for NFL Week 2 is Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants playing the Carolina Panthers, who have the 11th worst defense overall. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So Saquon Barkley, he scored 36 fantasy points in Week 1, had 18 rush attempts, 7 pass targets, so a ton of volume. He was on the field for 83% of the snaps. He's going to be about 24% owned, projected at 19.3 fantasy points here in Week 2. And I like this stud pick because he's only $7,300 DraftKings salary. Now he is $1,500 more on FanDuel, so I love that DraftKings price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43.5 points scored in this game, with the Giants favored by 2. So fantastic running matchup here. I think he's underpriced on DraftKings. So I like Saquon Barkley here versus the Carolina Panthers.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
All you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, so my sleeper pick at the running back position. Now, his ownership is up there just a little bit. Not a super deep sleeper or anything, but I do think he's going to go under the radar here in week 2. He's got a pretty tough matchup, but I think he'll be able to overcome it. I like Cordell Patterson from the Atlanta Falcons playing the LA Rams, who have the 4th worst defense overall. Now, they have been good versus opposing running backs so far, and Cordell Patterson scored 26 fantasy points in week 1. He had 22 rush attempts and 5 pass targets. So I like that he's also involved in the passing game. He's got deep ball speed, so he can catch a long ball for a long touchdown. He can break any given play. And Cordell Patterson going to be about 7% owned, projected at 13.4 fantasy points here in week 2. He's $6,000 DraftKings salary, $1,500 more on FanDuel. Now, we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 47 points scored in this game, with the Falcons trailing by 10. I do think this is a good game to stack, and I like Cordell Patterson here versus the LA Rams. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So, my wide receiver stud for week 2 is Davante Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders playing the Arizona Cardinals, who have the absolute worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing wide receivers. Davante Adams scored 33 fantasy points in week 1 off of 17 pass targets. He was on the field for 95% of the snaps. He's going to be about 22% owned, projected at 21.2 fantasy points here in week 2. He's $8,600 DraftKings salary, $200 more on FanDuel, and Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 51.5 points scored in this game, with the Raiders favored by 5.5. So I like that he's quite a bit less expensive than Cooper Kupp, who Cooper Kupp is in a fantastic spot here versus the Atlanta Falcons as well. There's so many good players for this fantasy game here, the Rams versus the Falcons. Absolutely a game I'm going to stack, but Davante Adams is only $8,600 DraftKings salary compared to Cooper Kupp, who's $9,900. So if you're looking for a stud that has 30 plus fantasy point upside, under 9,000, take a look at Davante Adams here versus the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, so my wide receiver sleeper pick for NFL Week 2 is Jerry Jeudy from the Denver Broncos playing the Houston Texans, who have the 6th worst defense overall. They give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy scored 23 fantasy points off of 7 pass targets in week 1. He was on the field for 89% of the snaps. He's going to be about 9% owned, so that's not super low ownership, but I do think he's going to go under the radar just a little bit here in week 2, and he's projected at 14.7 fantasy points. And I like this pick because he's only $5,600 DraftKings salary, $700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45.5 points scored in this game, with the Broncos favored by 10. So fantastic matchup, excellent week 1. He's got that 20 plus fantasy point upside. So I like Jerry Jeudy here versus the Houston Texans.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the tight end position. So my tight end stud for week 1, it's a pretty clear-cut pick for me. I like Darren Waller from the Las Vegas Raiders playing the Arizona Cardinals, who have the absolute worst defense overall, have given up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Now, Darren Waller, he scored 12 fantasy points in week 1. He got 6 pass targets, not as much volume as we'd like to see. Of course, Davante Adams eating up a lot of the target share, but that's also going to take the defenders off of Darren Waller and give him a lot of opportunity in this game. He was on the field for 84% of the snaps. He's going to be about 8% owned, projected at 13.1 fantasy points here in week 2. I think he can go for 18 plus fantasy points, and he's only $5,600 DraftKings salary, $1,200 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 51.5 points scored in this game, with the Raiders favored by 5.5. So I think he's going to get closer to 8 to 10 plus targets in this one. I think he can find the end zone and take some pressure off of Davante Adams. So I like Darren Waller here versus the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, now my sleeper pick at the tight end position is Hayden Hurst from the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Dallas Cowboys, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They've been pretty good versus opposing tight ends, but Hayden Hurst scored 10 fantasy points off of 8 pass targets in week 1. He was on the field for 75% of the snaps. He's going to be about 3% owned, projected at 8.2 fantasy points here in week 2. And he's only $3,600 DraftKings salary, $1,700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 41.5 points scored in this game, with the Bengals favored by 7. So I like that he got 8 pass targets in week 1. I want to see if that target share continues here in a week 2, but his price tag is low enough where he should be able to get enough targets and produce enough to meet his salary. And he's low ownership, so if he does go off and score a touchdown or 2, I think it's going to be a nice sleeper pick. So I like Hayden Hurst here versus the Dallas Cowboys.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.